welcome back. This is Ed McCarthy, CEO of Echelon Performance. You have tuned into Coaching Sidebar. My guest today is somebody who, anytime I get to spend with her, I find so incredibly valuable and uplifting. You're like my own personal Ted Lasso. I just feel so good after talking with you. Carol Roby is the Dean of the Commodore Academy. She's the Senior Director of People Development at Commodore Builders. I've known Carol, full disclosure, for probably the better part of the last 7 years or so. And Carol, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to see you.
Is there anything?
And Ted Lasso, those are big shoes to fill. Believe.
But I just feel you're one of the people in my life, professionally, personally, who, when I talk with you, I walk away from that conversation just feeling uplifted. And I'm not just blowing smoke. It's true. I cannot tell you how much I am grateful for and enjoy the time that we spend together.
Thank you. I feel the same.
And not only that, but you are also probably one of the most knowledgeable people when it comes to high performance organizations, the role of leadership, coaching, skill development. You've seen it from so many different aspects and in so many different roles that I really want to start to try to narrow our focus with regard to I don't want to be all over the place, but I thought we could start out talking about something that I read that you had put out, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but you said that really there's a need for employees, leaders, to start to diversify and broaden their skills to meet the needs for the future workforce. And that sounds like a lot, but tell me a little bit more about what you meant by that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think about and talk about the future a lot. And I'm going to start out by being a little controversial to my own point of view in saying that more often than not lately, I'm finding that what's old is new. And by that, I mean, in terms of leadership, some of the traditional challenges that leaders have had with moving certainly from individual contributor to leading others or from, helping teams and groups grow as it relates to where they are and thinking about the future needs and all the implications of technology and everything else. Some of the core capabilities are still tried and true and still a big challenge for people. And the ones that come to mind for me specifically are how to influence and engage others in a way that makes it less about you and more about them. Mm-hmm. And, delegating and the more traditional challenges that people have, having risen through the ranks, being successful, doing what I do the way I do it. And then now working with a group of people, and especially this younger generation, people who have a pretty set way of, I want to do this my way. I've got a different way. And so I talk a lot about, we have the impression that our leaders need to have, our headset is to have the same finish line in mind. We're all going, we have the same goal. We're all heading in the same direction. We've got the same end game in mind. How we're going to get there is going to be a little bit different. Could be a little bit different. It shouldn't all be, this is how I would do it. And imparting that wisdom, I think, is probably the number one skill set, which isn't, in my mind, necessarily a data analytics or digital competence. It is a lot of what I just said.
No, I think that's really poignant, and we'll talk more about this later. But in today's world, the drumbeat of technology and AI and all these things, you almost have this rising sense like, wow, every day I'm falling a little bit further behind because I don't know these things. Hmm. But what you're saying is that when it comes to being effective today and preparing yourself for the future workforce, it really does come back to the basics.
In large part, it does. I don't want in any way infer that there aren't some key critical skills that have evolved over the years that are really important and are going to be even more important, especially with, Chat GPT and AI and AR and all of the amazing things that we haven't even thought of yet. But I think some of what I just described, as well as another key area we're all hearing so much about, you know, DE&I and what I like to call social intelligence, you know, the combination of understand. You have to have intellectual capacity in order to lead, and emotional intelligence. Obviously, we've spent a lot of time talking about understanding who you are and understanding others that you're working with. Social intelligence, that third leg of the stool, you know, being how do you integrate those two and engage and communicate in community and with others, with your customers, in the communities where you live and do your business, and internally with your teams. That is, in my mind, a second of maybe three top skills that I would say is key to understand first yourself, and then be able to leverage it's not just the various ways that I might get you to that same finish line, but how you do it, who you are, what you bring to the table is going to be very different and continues to be different. And we need to pay a lot more attention to that.
I'm going to just ask you, you said social intelligence, emotional intelligence, and just intelligence.
Intelligence.
Yeah. Do you think different roles require that those are set in different priorities, or are they, I mean, does it really start with just knowing yourself?
I think it starts with knowing yourself. I think regardless of where you are in your career or even in life, and I would argue, if you can start to find ways as a parent to develop your own children's social and emotional intelligence, right, along with what they're doing in school and so forth, you got a head start on it. But I think, so here at Commodore, we're a construction management company, a medium-sized firm, and we are hiring a lot of younger people right out of college. We have a management rotation program. And my observation is many of them come with more EQ and maybe SQ, social intelligence, than maybe in 10 years ago or 15 in another generation. The intellectual capacity is what we need to build. You know, how do you build buildings? That's what we do. How do you manage the risk of that? Sure. And they come with some knowledge, but, you know, we're, you know, especially through these programs, are helping develop that capability, but they're coming more with a better sense and more antenna around what makes you different from me, and the expectations that we're going to respect and acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Maybe more than we did.
And is it fair to say that's, you said more than 10 years ago, I don't want to generalize, but when I think of building and construction, I think I have a particular demographic in mind. And maybe that there is probably a strong expertise, and I'm thinking of people in my demographic, right? Older, you know, people that have been in the industry for a while. They really value the how to do something, you know, I think. And is there a mindset shift that you see happening with some of the more tenured people in an organization, or some of the people that have been in the industry longer, in trying to work with and adapt with these younger employees?
So what I would say is, and I'll speak on behalf of the industry more than my specific slice of it, is that is our biggest challenge.
Okay.
When I think of the future and I think of the people now we're hiring in their 20s and 30s, I see a future that looks very different because they're coming with what we just talked about, versus, you know, the baby boomers of my generation, right? Yours, we're wired a little differently. I'd like to think you can teach an old dog new tricks. I mean, that's the business I'm in. So I will go down trying.
Right.
And we come with a certain orientation around that. And so I think it's a challenge. It's a challenge for every company in this industry that is, you know, steeped with it is a mature industry. It's a tough job, you know, building buildings. And and through COVID, we recognized our industry didn't stop. It was wasn't considered essential from a health perspective, but we had 68 projects, and we're commercial builders. So we build labs and commercial buildings and colleges and schools. That work didn't stop. We had one project out of 68 that closed for 1 week.
Wow.
Everyone else had to be on the job Monday morning at 6 a.m. And so, you know, a lot of people's orientation to work changed over COVID, yet we're in an industry where it still requires everyone to be there on Monday at 6 and leaving Friday at 4, whatever it is. And sometimes working nights and weekends and getting credentialed. And it's steeped in the business model is kind of it hasn't changed much. And I don't know that it will.
Yeah.
With some minor, we'll talk about technology in a minute and the influence that has. But so I think inherent in that is you've got a whole generation of people here that think and lead in a certain way. And that is kind of what it is.
Yeah. So that is, there's not a lot of opportunity for virtual work in that line of work. But
you can't build buildings from your kitchen table.
No. And no. But tell me, so it sounds like this is an area of focus for you. Are there some things where you've seen success? Are there programs that you've done, the work that you focus on to really help build this bridge and make, you use the analogy of a stool, right? The 3 legs of the stool, just to shore up all 3 of those legs for all the employees, whether they're more tenured in the industry or maybe they're just coming into the industry.
Yeah, so here might be something considered future, but it may also kind of be back to the future again, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Several initiatives that we've been working on here that I think will raise the stakes for the industry once we kind of work through them and can share them with our peers, are looking at key areas where our business and our industry has always been challenged. And when I say buildings don't build themselves from the kitchen table, they also have oftentimes required and depended on an individual swinging a hammer, nailing a nail, an individual team working on site, doing things manually. And kind of a bridge to technology, there are so many opportunities to do prefabrication work outside of a building, to leverage 3D technologies, to leverage robotics, we're even starting to talk about AI and chat and how that can potentially start to shift the way that we do business. Just having those conversations, being more literate, digitally literate, for our leaders and our people. Our younger people are already there. They're hungry. They're like, let's figure out a better way to do this.
Yeah.
But bringing that, we're using drone technology and other technologies in our business drives different leadership behavior and thinking. It also lends itself to being more collaborative because there isn't just now one way to do things. That opens up this whole opportunity that, around emotional intelligence and social intelligence and thinking about, okay, we need to kind of get at the same thing, but in a different approach. So how do we do that? How do we leverage technology? Our more senior guys may not have all the answers. Mm-hmm. And so they're being open to relying more on differing points of view. Sure. So from a program standpoint, we will develop the tools and the skills and the approaches to that. But the real work begins once that's done. The more traditional training, where we see the behavior change happen and the change management and the real rubber hitting the road is then taking all of that out to the rhythm of the business and working with teams and projects and all of our third-party stakeholders to engage them in a different kind of collaborative conversation. And we hardwire that. So I call it the anatomy of fill in the blank. So we're doing an anatomy of the project as an example, and we'll look at the different stakeholders and who engages with who and what does that look like. And then we look at skill building around it. And then we look at ways that we can measure the success by doing things differently. So it's about collaboration. I think we're looking at how do you build trust? How do you engage? How do you collaborate with teams in a way that you can have a better end result?
Yeah. As you had started talking about that, I was like, wow, you're really building a collaborative environment. And that is such a critical piece of success on so many levels in the industry. So excellent summary and very intriguing. You started talking a little bit about technology. Let's take a little bit of a break. and we'll come back and we'll talk more about the impact of technology, because I know that's something that you are really well versed in. So we'll talk tech in a minute, right?
Right. Sounds great.
Carol Roby, the Dean of Commodore Academy, Senior Director of People Development for Commodore Builders. We will be right back to talk more.